It's 6 o'clock, so we're going to call our meeting to order tonight. Thanks for joining us this evening. I usually do not chair these meetings, so please bear with me if I have some struggles with our electronics. I've got lots of board members who have experience with this, so they will be helping me if I need it, and I appreciate that. Thank you to everyone for joining us on this beautiful summer night. We do have a quorum tonight. We have 5 members present of our 9. And we want to affirm that this meeting has been properly noticed before we begin. We always begin our meetings with our statement of our district vision. We are one of Wisconsin's finest school districts, fostering excellence for all through innovation. To kick off our meeting tonight, we want to recognize our state FFA participants.
All right, so just as not all the board members could make it on a beautiful summer evening, not all of our FFA members, Badger Girls is happening. I know I've got some kids there. So if you don't know, I'm Natasha Paris in my last appearance before you as your ag teacher FFA advisor. So we had a very successful year. A young lady who was just here but had to go to another meeting, Waida Sina, she entered in the beef production placement proficiency, which is a lengthy application that goes that competes against all the other kids who work on beef farms in the state. And she actually got to be on stage last week at state convention, and she ended up placing 4th, which had a cash prize as well. So that was pretty cool. We had 2 members earn their state degrees, which is a completion of membership at a high level. Those are graduates Amanda Beck and Izzy Badke. And then in the speaking contest area, we had the first in my tenure of a student making state in the discussion meet contest, which if you've never seen discussion meet before, I've competed in it at the young adult level in Farm Bureau. It is like, it's a competition in aggressive consultation. It's really weird, but you get used to it. So Dylan made it to state in that and competed in the semifinals and did a great job. So we're very proud of Dylan. Came in for making it through the gauntlet all the way to state, because only 10 kids make it to state in each event. Then in the career development events, which is our big, like, normal, what we think of as ag contests, judging contests, we had, I'm gonna forget, we had 4 teams, I think, make it to state this year. We had our wildlife team, and they placed 16th. Our agronomy team, which is crops and soils, and they also placed 16th. And then our horse team took 11th. And is that what I put in there? No, I got it. That's it. And then the horse team took 11th as a team, but individually we had 2 members take top 10 in the state. So Maddie Weiss, who's a junior, finishing her junior year, she was like 5th in the state individually. There's hundreds of kids compete in this, and there's regionals, and this year actually, because of coming out of COVID and the campuses would only allow so many kids on campus, so we had to do a pre-screening virtually to be allowed to come to regionals, and then they would compete at regionals, and then there was a pre-screening for state to be allowed to go to state. And so if you made it through regionals and you placed high enough, then they did a set of prelims of state online, and then state finals were in person in Madison. So it was quite the gauntlet. So Maddie Weiss took 5th, and Amanda Beck took 8th individually in horse judging. And then, come on up, the one person who is joining me this evening, Tori Miller is on our vet science team. Tori does plan on being a veterinarian someday, and she's the longest rating member of our vet science team, and now also the only member because the others graduated. So She is the heart. And so she and Emily Koshabowski, Jessica Kletke, and Maya McFarlane, all the other 3 of them are all attending River Falls next year pre-vet. So they were a really hardcore team. They practiced so hard, worked really hard, and they took 3rd at state at a very difficult competition. Do you want to explain just real quick what the components of your competition were?
Yeah, so there are 4 parts total. No, 3 parts total. There is the math practicum.
No, there's 4.
4?
The test. We did
Yes,
online.
the test is the prelim, that's why I'm forgetting it. So our preliminary, like she was talking about, was online this year. Usually there are 4 parts total when we go to the actual competitions, but we did the tests online, and then based on that score, we were allowed to go to state or not. So we had the test first, and then there are 3 parts that we did in person. There was the math practicum, which is a test based on like dosages and stuff like that, and basic math that you would have to do as a veterinarian. Then there is the regular practicum, which is going to be anything that you'd have to do as a vet. So some of the things that I studied were how to wrap a surgical pack, how to prepare a surgical site, how to halter a ruminant, which I didn't do so well once we got there, but that's okay. Simple tasks like that are basically what you do for that. And there are lists of like,
an injection.
Yep, how to fill a syringe.
Yeah.
And you walk through the steps with the judge there, so you're in front of one judge and you're going through and trying to meet a rubric and trying to get a perfect score on that. And then the last one is identification. So you have 50 pictures scattered across the room out of a list of like over 400 different things.
There's like 400 things on the list.
Yeah, so that can range from different parasites, different tools, different breeds of animals, including like cattle, rabbits, dogs, cats. And so we studied these lists for the entire semester leading up to it, basically. Yeah. And then we walk around a room and we write down on a sheet the like number code for it, and we try to get as many identifications correct as possible.
Yeah, it's not like a multiple choice where they're like, this is one of these 4 things.
No.
It's here's your packet with 400 items on it.
Yeah.
Page through it to find the one you're looking for. And there's each one has a 3-digit code, and you have to write down the 3-digit code on the form.
Yep.
So out of all the kids that competed statewide, our team placed 3rd, so we're very, very proud of them. So, yeah.
Wow. Good job.
Yeah, so that's it. You don't get to go to nationals unless you win state in FFA. FBLA, I know they always get to go to state nationals for things, but not the case in FFA. So, but yeah, so that is it. That's capping off my career, folks. So, so yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Great job, Tori. Wow. That's a lot of pressure, right? All of that. Uh-huh.
It's a very intense day.
Yeah.
Get a picture. Natasha, come on. 2 go in the middle here. How exciting this is.
Yes, this is all I do.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I got 14 individually, but
That is amazing. Yeah, good for you.
I just want to acknowledge the great job that Natasha Paris has done with the team.
thank you so much.
If you have any property needs in Green Lake County,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we also want to recognize our state track participants tonight. Do we think we have one of them here with us?
Here tonight.
Can you tell us a little bit about your event and how you did?
Here, we'll have you come on out. There you go. You're used to the state spotlight, so we're done.
Yeah, this is almost worse than that. I'm Noah Hansen. I went for shot put. I took 15th out of the 16 kids there. I mean, yeah, I'm a junior, hoping to go there next year. Do you want me to talk about the other people? Or? Which I
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had 4 athletes total, including myself, Cameron Hahn, Anya Duffy, and Selena Lopez. Selena went for 3 events, long jump, triple jump, and the 100. She got first in triple, second in long, and then I don't know what place she got in the 100. She didn't make finals, so I think she got like 13th, just a guess. And then Anya got maybe 15th, and then Cameron got 6th in shot put and somewhere in the 10s for disc. Yeah, that was a while ago. I don't know.
What was the experience like?
Oh, it was cool. I mean, the whole 2-day track meet was different because most of them are like at night. So yeah, it was fun though. I enjoyed it.
Congratulations. Well done.
Yeah, congratulations.
I have one copy of the press release when you get it. You're here. So congratulations. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Yep.
Go. I'll get your picture there. Ready?
All that.
Congrats.
We're looking forward to next year.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming.
Yep. Thank you.
You did great.
All right, thanks to all those students for their hard work and for representing our school so well in their events. On to the public comments portion of our meeting.
We do not have anybody signed up to speak.
Okay. All right, do we have any written comments?
No.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the adoption or adjustment of the agenda. Do we have any adjustments? All right, hearing none, we will go forward with the agenda as is. My understanding is we do not need a vote on this. Okay, good. Just double checking on that. All right, announcements of contributions to the district.
Absolutely. Hillside Dental pledged an additional $2,000 of their $10,000 pledge for Ingalls Field Group, and Walsworth did the same, $2,000 of the $10,000 pledge for the Ingalls Field Group. So the following individuals donated to the Ripon Education Fund, and these were donations that were all over $250. Peter and Emily Sensenbrenner, Gary Rodman and Colleen Byron, Tim and Mary Like, Diedrich Jewelry, Florian and Darlene Witkowski, Betsy Blazek, Brad and Dawn Rasmussen, and Andy and Debbie Zaratsky. So I'm very appreciative for those donations.
All right. Thank you to everyone for their generous donations to the school district. Our next item of business, we have a safety update.
Yeah, and there are a number of us here who are on the district safety team, and I would invite those other members to come up. We did share a PowerPoint with the board, and it's attached to the agenda that anyone who goes into the agenda is able to look at and view. We won't necessarily go through that PowerPoint in detail as you have it there, but we did really want to talk about some of the safety-related trainings and preparatory work that has been done in the district, especially in light of some of the recent happenings in the country. So first, I would just have the members of our team introduce themselves. So,
Hi, Travis Lipton, Director of Technology.
I mean, Jess, Director of People Services.
Brian, Director of Facilities and Grounds.
Lindsay Michael, School Resource Officer.
Bill Walner, Chief of Police.
and so this team meets each month. We talk about safety issues in the district. A large part of that is that preparedness, making sure that we do our annual safety trainings and drills within the schools, and then really talk through our procedures and protocols and put those to the test with tabletops and real life training. So don't know, Emmy, if you want to just talk through a little bit there, and then if anyone wants to jump in and share a little bit more, that would be great, and then we'll open it up if you have any questions.
Definitely, and like Dr. Whitrock said, feel free to jump in, but I think what you all have in front of you, I'm assuming you had a copy of our slideshow that essentially just talks a little bit about, and I know we didn't give you an overview of each training, but just the title of each training. Most of them, I should say, were trainings, but some of them were also just our general work that we've done as a team to kind of just be more prepared for emergency situations. So we put our brains together, and it was good to do this, to actually say like, oh wow, we've never done this on paper, to actually see all the stuff that we've done. So we got all the way back to August of 2017, which is when we started really our first kind of thing that I would say as this team was our Fond du Lac County Emergency Government Tabletop. And so we actually came together in this room, and we walked through a couple of different emergency scenarios as a team, something that we're looking to hopefully do again in the near future. In April of 2018, I don't know, do you want me to go through each one of these? Okay, in April of 2018, I don't know who was, I think, Brian, this might have been yours, the Attorney General Summit on Public and School Safety.
Nope,
Yeah, I attended that as well.
Okay, perfect. July of 2018 is when we did our very first reunification walkthrough at Royal Ridges. Some of you may remember that experience, and that was a really good kind of introduction to what that really big reunification is going to look like. That same summer in August, we did our summer safety training, our Stop the Bleeder reunification at the Wilmore Center, so our second of those two reunification centers. We did that kind of as a smaller team. That team included emergency services personnel from our community. It included all of the members of our admin team, pupil services, and a sprinkling of a few others. Once we went through that, then we took it to a bigger team where we did our safety and crisis preparation training at the Wilmore Center, and that was during our back to school in service with all of our teaching staff. So we went through that whole reunification scenario that summer. A year later, you can see we did a lot of work. We did our annual summer safety training. That summer we went through active shooter scenarios and incident command system response. We went to the National Association of School Resource Officers and Department of Justice adolescent mental health training. I think the majority of us were part of that, and most of our admin team as well. Wisconsin Chiefs of Police School Safety and Active Shooter Training. I believe a couple people attended that. We had an emergency citywide drill, and then the implementation of our Raptor Emergency and Visitor Management System, which we'll be doing more work on again coming up.
And I just wanted to highlight that emergency citywide drill was in collaboration with the police department, and we were so happy to be able to be a part of that. And Bill, I'll let you speak about that a little bit, but it was really looking at an active shooter drill and looking at the collaboration between the fire department and the police, but it was the perfect time to kind of act out that incident command and allow the district to be a part of it as well.
Yeah, so many times when we go to training for incident command, we sit in a classroom, we go through the training, and it's usually excellent training. But when you then come back and incorporate that into an actual scenario or a hands-on type of experience, it puts a whole new dimension on that. So that's very important training to have. It allowed us to collaborate not only with school staff, but with the emergency response and services here, police, fire, EMS. We all came in and did an excellent training that day, and it's nice to go through those experiences for everybody to see how they work. And certainly we're looking at doing another one of those here probably this summer as well.
And if I could add, we have Fond du Lac County Emergency Management here as well for that training. And I think Bobby Hinkins also offered some police in the area to come over and just kind of see it. And we let fire, EMS, and police really run that incident command, and then have the gallery of our safety committees really watching that happen, because we had the live stream videos up on the screen to really show the incident that was going on, and then kind of watching the incident command roll out of how each discipline reacted to that as we had unfolded.
And we just kept walking through that scenario moment by moment and talking about what each entity would do as the others were completing their tasks. So police were rotating in and out with fire for recovery, for securing the building, to come together to communicate, to make sure that students were safe, and it was so real and a very moving experience, and gave us a little bit of muscle memory. And I think we learned very important things. Our original reunification training, we planned to pull staff from other buildings to help set up that reunification. We realized that if something like that were occurring in your district, you would keep all of your staff in their buildings to monitor what was happening there, to reassure people, to get those kids safely, and we really would need to rely on community leaders. Our partnership with the college or Royal Ridges or one of our other locations to help us complete that reunification. So.
And I'll share too, I think, to Chief Wallner's point, that was kind of a pivotal point in the way that we operated as a safety team, in that thinking through how each entity works together was, I think, really important for us. Each event, unfortunate, each crisis event that we've had moving forward, whether it was something like that small fire that we had at Barlow Park last summer, we have then gotten together after the event to actually debrief each one of those events with the greater team. So we've had police, fire, EMS, and then all of our district folks at that meeting, which has been incredibly helpful each time we learn something. Obviously, we don't want tragic things to happen, but we learn something and then we're able to integrate those moving forward. All of the things on that next slide, then February of 2020, the I Love You Guys Foundation Standard Response Protocol, Train the Trainer. Brian can speak a little to that. That was kind of the implementation point of the I Love You Guys Foundation.
Yep, so that was actually a training that Mary and Bill Kinziger and I don't know if Lindsay was here or it was Fred at that time, and then I think Chief went with us. And that was that is the platform that we use currently in our district, is the I Love You Guys platform. The Department of Justice really did a push back in 2020 to try and get every school district to use the same platform. So no matter what district you're in, we're all speaking the same language. Instead of code red or code black or code cardinal or something like that, everybody's using the same language. So we went to an 8-hour training, we got trained for it. We were already in I Love You Guys district, but we just kind of even grasped it even more and when that training came out, their update also came out where they went from 3 different scenarios to 5. And then us as a district, we actually have 6 because we broke our active threat away from I Love You Guys because we have so much more safety measures built into the active threat. So if something is happening in our building, and it's immediate, we have so many things built in now that, to say lockdown, it doesn't give them is it a lockdown because it's an issue outside, or is it a lockdown because we got, bad guys, shooting off rifles in our building. We wanted to have that more of a distinct difference for staff, because in active threat, we want them to have their choices of are they staying put, hiding, are they evading, by leaving the building, or are they running? It's the option that they have at that time for on the information they have. So we really thought as a safety team to keep that separate so they could make those choices, because the lockdown, if you read the true I Love You Guys lockdown, it's sit down and wait, and we don't want to go back 20 years and go back to the sitting and wait to hear details. We want you to take action on the details that you have at the moment.
The next thing is January of 21. Our entire people services team, which included at that time we had 14 individuals, were trained in the prepare model. And so you can read, I won't go through each one of those, but it's a very heavy focus on the psychological aftermath of something. And so that was incredibly helpful it goes through everything start to finish, from a crisis until the response afterward, but there is a very heavy emphasis on the mental health importance of the way that we address the different needs based on crises. And then the Department of Justice Basic Threat Assessment courses. Officer Michaels, myself, and our 2 high school counselors did those, and I believe Rick and Bill did those same trainings as well. And so essentially that has been, it's been a really game-changing tool for Lindsay and myself, certainly, in the way that we respond when there is a student threat. And so that could be threat to self, but namely threats to others. So it is a protocol that the Department of Justice has pushed out to say we really want schools to use this. And it is essentially a series of questions, guided interviews that we go through with our students anytime that there's a threat. So it's a really nice way to document and make sure that we're doing a thorough job when there are threats. August of 21, so last summer, we did our summer safety training and we went through kind of 4 different rotations: drug prevention, incident command, stop the bleed, and then our standard response protocol. This last February, a U.S. Secret Service presentation analysis of plots against schools. That was what Brian had attended. And then just as recently as a couple of months ago in May, we did attend a C3 Pathways School Safety and Violent Event Incident Management Training, which was really good to kind of be part of that. It was mostly police officers that were there, but there were also a few fire and EMS and a few school officials. So it was really good to attend that training. It was part of the, I believe, school resource officer state summit series. It was good to see things as a school professional from that vantage point. And again, it's just allowed us to think through a series of, oh wow, we really do want to come back together as a community of people to see what are the next steps that we need to take to make sure that we're prepared all the way around and working well together.
And that same training is a training that we had an in-service countywide, so all officers in the county have been trained in that same training. What was that, 3 years ago? So knowing that we're all on the same page, so if we have other officers responding here, that they are trained in the same thing that we are.
We've had some parent communications too, which is really important. We can collaborate best when we all know everyone's role and what we need to do to be most helpful. And so we've had those communications with parents as well in terms of, watching your email, following this district website, Facebook page, looking for those updates, charging your phone, having your identification ready, and waiting for information about where to go so that they're not crowding a scene where we want to keep that area open for EMS and fire and police to be. So again, that collaborative effort so that we are allowing our emergency personnel to do what they need to do and not be distracted by the rest of us, but making sure we know what to do to be most helpful and how to communicate. So, it has been a busy number of years, but again, we keep reviewing and revisiting, working on our procedures, helping to build that collaborative language and response protocol so that, as fire departments will, call on other fire departments to come in and back them up depending upon the size of the fire. The police department is ready to do that. Our counseling department is ready to do that. EMS is, so that we can get the help and support we need, and that we can offer that help and support to other districts in our area as well. So,
Thank you.
The work's not done.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that we are at this place and we have to do these things, but thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
And thank you guys for being supportive. I mean, every year I bring the plans to you guys to get approved, and we try to update them every year. I mean, some districts may never update them, but we try to update every year because we know it as a team. What if we had a debrief? What do we need to change? And police are constantly evolving on the way they do their tacticals. I mean, 20 years ago it was set up perimeter and wait. Now it's go in, take care of the issue, and stop the killing. It's the big change. And I don't know if Chief wants to talk about it, but it's a huge change.
Certainly, anytime you have an incident like happened, a couple months ago in Texas, certainly people ask questions, and that's one of the things that comes out of a devastating incident like that is the ability to look at that incident and decide what can we do better. We've learned that from Columbine way back in the day that Brian was referring to. Tactics change, things change. So being able to do that afterwards, certainly ask questions. Obviously, we don't know the facts about that particular case yet, but there were some questionable things that were done. One of the things I will talk about a little bit for you is that the active shooter response or incident management response within this county is drastically changing. As soon as September of this year, we're in the process right now. I happen to sit on a committee through the Following County Law Enforcement Executives, where we're organizing a countywide training just for those things that you heard, getting everybody on the same page within the county. With that, we're also going to train 10 instructors in active shooter incident management. Right now, there's currently, I believe, 6 in the entire state. At the end of this training in September, Fond du Lac County will have 12 instructors for that course. So we will by far surpass any other county in this state when it comes to having instructors available to teach that material, including Officer Corey Ballman from our department, who's going to be an instructor for that, and he's attending classes for that. The other thing I'll mention really quickly here is that you should be extremely proud of your district and the people that sit on this committee. I go to a lot of meetings involving police chiefs, and even within this county or outside of this county within the state. And when I hear chiefs talk about their school districts, about the reunification process and not having plans, not having done the training that this district has done, this group has done above and beyond what a lot of other districts have done. And you should be extremely proud of the work that they've done, because they're a hardworking group and they represent your district very well, and they're top notch. So.
You mentioned the incident in Texas. One of the things that's disturbing about the reports that are coming out after the fact is the confusion around who was in charge at the scene and the delays that created in entering the building.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that and what we have in place in Ripon to prevent that confusion and prevent those delays?
Sure. So we train on a system that basically, let's face it, our department is small. There may be a time where I have 2 officers working if an incident like that occurs, whether it's here at the school district or at a district building, or whether it's at Alliance Laundry or whatever. So we go through a process in our training where those officers, those first responding officers, know what their jobs are. Whether that's, the first officer gets there, he's got certain things that he or she needs to do. And he or she steps in and makes those judgment calls and directs personnel, directs resources, goes in and addresses the active threat. Then, the second officer that arrives goes in with that person and addresses that. The very first thing we need to do is address that threat. Okay? We need to stop whatever is happening. That's what the first job is of the 1, 2, and 3 officers that are first to arrive. It's not until we get to the 4th officer where that officer then decides, I'm in command, I need to now start directing resources, what do we need and where do we go. Those first 3 officers that respond to any incident, their primary job is to go into that building and address whatever the issue is and get it stopped. Okay? So that's the kind of training that we're going through. There were some failures by all reports as to what happened in Texas. We're hearing those. When the after action thing comes out, it'll be interesting to see that, but there were some different failures there across the board that seem to be missing. It's not how we respond, or it shouldn't respond. So we've taken a lot of time to address that, to go through those. That's part of what those exercises were here, and how we address those things, and we spend a lot of time on that. So hope that kind of answers your question. Obviously, whenever you have, let's face it, that's a nightmare event. Bottom line, one of the events that none of us in this room ever hope that ever comes to this city, this community. So things can happen. I'm not saying that we're 100% perfect, but hopefully, one of my jobs is to train our people to be ready for that, and that's my responsibility. So, from a law enforcement response, and hopefully that training that we're doing, continue to address, gets us through that nightmare event. But we spend a lot of time.
And then like the most recent training that we went to, that main training, the C3 pathways, that the purpose of that entire training and everything that Chief Wallner is referring to, that's the incident command system. So we spend a lot of time on our end trying to understand, okay, what is their role? And basically, for lack of a better way to put it, how do we stay out of their way and then know what is our role? And what does each person need to do and when does that need to happen? As part of that training we sat through, it was pretty eye-opening as a school professional. They basically took us through, probably for 30 minutes, the radio activity that happens during an active threat event, and we were able to listen to the first, the then, the next. And there's a really nice checklist that they provided us as part of this that we'll now sit down and look at in comparison to our incident command of basically this is the recommendation for the order these things happen in, and that's where we'll work with police to say, here's where police fits in, here's where EMS, here's where fire, and here's where the school district kind of fits into all of this, so that kind of brings that whole thing
Truly is a
together.
hierarchy where each entity will have its own incident command, but a member from each of those entities will be together in one complete incident command so that we're able to communicate across our organizations and into each organization's incident command to manage the systems that we're responsible for within our entities. So
Yeah, you've heard it mentioned here several times about partnerships, whether it's training or, police, fire, EMS, working in the school district. The relationship that we have with your district is spectacular, in my opinion. It's never been stronger. Across the board with all the emergency response. So that's a credit to your staff and us, the emergency services here too, because that's not the case in a lot of areas. So we continue to have a very strong relationship with the admin teams in all of your buildings. They know they can call me or Lindsay or any time. We all have our personal cell phones, so if there's any issues, they can always reach out. But across the board, the relationship is very strong. Collaboration between the district and the emergency response is very good.
and we are really we're on call 24/7, 365 to make sure we collaborate and connect and handle what needs to be taken care of. So I truly, truly appreciate this team as well and our partnership with the police department, EMS, and fire. And as Brian said, our Fond du Lac County Emergency Government have been so supportive when we've asked them to partner with us to observe a training we're doing, or if it is to initiate and create a tabletop, and we're walking in the room, we have no idea what they're going to throw at us. I mean, it's so powerful. We learn every single time. And I can't say enough to some of the trainings that we've been to when we've been able to interact with individuals who've been through these events and have feedback in their open and honesty to say, hey, we wish we would have done this better. We wish we would have been more prepared. That's a brutal truth that they own and they share to hopefully have any situation moving forward be a better outcome. So we appreciate their efforts as well.
And thank you for being willing to look at some of the atrocities that are taking place and really kind of sift through that to see where we can improve and how we can prevent and how we can be proactive in protecting our students and staff. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, we thank the board for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. All right, our next item of business, the 2021-2022 end of year dashboard report.
And we do all of those safety things so we can have students in the building comfortable and secure and in an amazing environment so they can learn and optimize every one of those taxpayer dollars.
Well, as in years past, we have a tremendous amount to celebrate, as you saw by all of the data. Tonight, our intent is not to necessarily go through all of the data because you have that in front of you, but we really want to try to highlight just kind of our key findings and really our next steps for what we plan to do to improve even more. I guess our very first celebration is the fact that our brick and mortar schools were all able to be here in person this year. And that certainly has had a very positive effect on all of our data, from the academic to all of the other data that you see there for certain. This year we have invited Jill. I know in the past Jill Plumman-Becker, our reading specialist, has always done a separate reading specialist report. And this year we had invited Jill to actually add her data to this dashboard to try to integrate some of that so that it's not two different reports. Jill had started to do that already with our interventions at the mid-year report, and she has added some extra data. So Jill will also be sharing some things as we go through our report a little bit here tonight. But again, as you look through the report, we did include data that highlights our attendance data, our behavior. our pupil service contest, and then each of our achievement data is in there. I can speak, I guess, mostly to the achievement data that for each of our schools. As you know, our district has switched to the brick and mortar schools using iReady as our district screen for both reading and math, kindergarten through 8th grade. And as you look at that data, you know, certainly the thing that we want to highlight is that as we compare our fall data to our spring data for each of our grade levels, what we hope to see is we hope to see those green bands growing and our red bands shrinking. And when you look at the data for each of our grade levels, that is certainly the case, and that is something to be super proud of. There is no doubt that we are still reeling from the impacts of COVID. This year, it's our second graders, right? That was our first group that truly was impacted from kindergarten on, and you know, we certainly recognize that and know that there's much to be done with our students across the district. But again, a huge celebration is just to recognize the growth that is being made all the way across our district. Again, as I meet with our iReady consultants, they continually note how impressed they are with the growth that our district continues to make in definitely closing that gap. I am going to invite each of our principals to come on up and just kind of highlight any key findings or next steps that they want to talk about. And then Jill, if you could come on up as well and just talk a little bit about the intervention data that had been previously shared in your reading report, that would be fantastic. So come and have a seat, ladies. What's that? I'm assuming I'm first. Yeah. Oops, sorry, Jill.
Okay. I think Chrissy stated our celebrations really well. Our goal this year was growth. For all of our kids, we wanted to see them grow. We wanted to have them continue to close that gap. And when you look at the achievement bars for iReady and for the benchmark assessment system, you see that it's had grown tremendously this year. Chrissy also identified that the group of second graders that we have this year is so far the group that we have seen most impacted by COVID. They were in kindergarten when we started learning from home, and that's the second semester is really when they dig in and start learning to read. And so doing that from home over a computer was pretty challenging. Those of you who saw it firsthand from home, we apologize. We did the best we could. But so what we have done specifically for that group is we have really focused a lot on universal instruction and bringing in some of the key strategies that we use in intervention into the classrooms. And so Tammy Fox did partner with our second grade teachers to go in and do a modified version of intervention with our second grade students to really give them a boost up at the beginning of the year. And then our second grade teachers were able to continue that by using instructional aids throughout the day to be able to continue that level of instruction for our second grade. And so to be able to see how much green we have and how we're really very close to where we have been other years in the spring is a huge celebration for us. But going forward, we want to continue to focus on universal instruction. We have the literacy audit that we had done this year and using that to focus on quick wins and then improve universal instruction across the board in the area of literacy. We want to continue to partner with our interventionists and our pupil services team to make sure that we are giving instruction right at the level that our kids need it at, and then using our instructional coaches to be able to help teachers who might be working beyond their grade band at any given time because of the needs of the kids in the classroom. We want to continue to provide intensive Tier 3 interventions for our first and second graders, primarily with the highest needs, and then bring in our kindergarten students in second semester as we have done in the past.
I will highlight that our summer school numbers are high. I was actually just adding kids into iReady summer school report groups, and we have a huge number of students participating, which is exciting to see, just to continue to get that boost throughout the summer. So.
And then we also wanted to begin to train staff in advanced math recovery to begin to understand the developmental process of learning math and developing that number sense so that we can provide more math interventions within the special education classrooms and general ed classrooms.
Thank you. Do you want to share anything, Jill, from the K-2 perspective in regard to literacy?
Sure. So one of the things that we have worked on this year, Tanya mentioned the literacy audit that we did. So we had an opportunity to go into each classroom. We used look-fors, and we're looking at what are the teachers doing and how is that instruction working, and looking at materials. And then along with that, as we analyzed the data from that and worked with the consultant from CISA 6, we have also been attending the Early Literacy Academy. Our literacy leadership team has been learning a lot, and we have access to modules and information, PD support that we will be able to provide our teachers. So as we are looking at how are we going to support our teachers and being able to do that instruction for our students just where they need it, we have a lot of resources and have developed a strategic plan going forward for the best way to do that, so we can support our teachers so they are able to support our kids.
Thank you. Okay, Renee, anything you want to share? So much of it is...
There's a lot the same. So I guess first off, I would just ask if there was any questions about just the overall data that you saw. Otherwise, I would just head into some of the next steps that we have for next year. You know, kind of, and just replicating a little bit of what Tanya said, we too are really pleased with the progress that we made with our kids, academically as well as socially, emotionally, and behaviorally. There has been a big adjustment moving out of, moving through COVID, I shouldn't say out of, through COVID, and all the things that went along with that. So it's been a work in progress, but we have an amazing team who's really dug in and has worked really, really hard to be able to put supports in places for kids, both in core academics as well as social, emotional, and behaviorally. As we look at next year, then we would continue to work to apply not only our Bridges Math, but our Bridges Math intervention, as well as some other intervention opportunities that we're looking at for math too. Dana Scott is going to do some work with math intervention, kind of piggybacking also with the work that she's doing with our EL kids and beyond. So we're really maximizing even more of her time. So she will be, not that she hasn't been, she's been a busy lady, but continuing to just get every last support we can in place for our kids to be able to close those gaps. So that will be really, really helpful, and she's been gracious in being willing to take on some training to be able to make that happen. So we're really happy about that and thankful for that as well. Tanya and Jill talked about the inquiry of the audit, so I'm just going to kind of overview, breeze over that. Again, we are looking to continue to really hone in on the data that we have for our kids and really continue to help teachers to feel that comfort in terms of how do they analyze, how do they collect it in a meaningful way that they can utilize that for math and reading, as well as the social, emotional, and behavioral pieces. So we are working closely with our staff in terms of how to do that and make the most of the data. Because it's one thing to have all the data, it's another thing to keep an ongoing eye on it and continue to utilize it. Our kids will continue to be a part of, as well as we will, the CQI process that we've dug in and utilized and have found a great deal of success with as well. Obviously, there is the ongoing support from Jill as our reading specialist and coaching. This year, she's done a great deal, not only of coaching teachers, but has also just dug into getting into the classrooms even more. When we look at some of our youngest kids in particular, and just kind of helping to figure out where do we start. And so it ends up being, maybe a team of 2 teachers who are taking their 40+ kids and Jill and dividing them up between 3 so that they can really hone in on what are the individual needs, because they are all over the map. We have not been able to do some of the same kinds of interventions this past year as we would have done years past, because we've got a lot of kids here and we've got a lot of kids here and not a lot of kids in the middle. So we're trying to navigate all of those things. But again, that goes back to that very targeted work with kids. And lastly, to Chrissy's point, the summer school work that we are doing too, we are full. We are at capacity for summer school. There aren't spots available. There might be a couple spatterings within our core academics, but every other class is full, and we even expanded the numbers a little bit more. So it's a good problem to have, but the house is full. So yeah, but again, we're doing all of those things this summer too. More math intervention, reading intervention, behavior intervention, and so on. So we just continue to hit it strong. Any questions you might have on
It's fantastic that our families are taking advantage of summer school.
They really are.
Really wonderful.
It's really great, yeah. And we have a really great team of staff who are gracious in supporting our kids' needs too, which is really wonderful.
I have a question going into the next academic year. Is the number of interventionists going to stay the same for this year?
It is.
And actually increase a little bit with the math intervention.
With Dana helping out some with that too, so yeah, that'll be really helpful as well, because as Tanya mentioned, that the second grade class that is coming up that's a class that got hit really hard by COVID because of timing. So
and they're making good progress, but we need to keep that support there.
Jill, what have I missed? Go for it.
Nothing that I can think of. We are even though the work we're doing with CISA at the Early Literacy Academy seems like, well, that would only be for K2 kind of interests, it really does affect our 3-5 staff as well, so they have a really good understanding. They have a lot of students coming up that are at a level different than they've had to work with before, and how do we use some of the structures or pieces that might be universal at K2 to support students in the classroom in small groups that might need additional intervention when they're in 3-5. It's another way that we're looking at that PD that we're going to be providing to the teachers. So we have that. Summer school, I just wanted to let you know, I don't know if you know this, Chrissy has made this possible for the last number of years for summer school. Our kids K2 and 3-5 get to go to the public library once a week. So all of the kids in summer school get the opportunity to go over to the public library, check out books, do things while they're there, and go back to school. And when I did a book giveaway at the end of the year and to kick off their summer reading, they were really excited about that opportunity. So just wanted to let you know too that that's happening, because as much as we focus on the academics and that piece is so huge, focusing on that affective, that love of reading and enjoying and building that lifelong reader is also important. And so we see that as a huge connection of being able to do that.
And it's amazing how many of our children do not actually physically go to the library unless they participate through this experience. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
and even with the year being as nutty as it was, Jill and Allison were able to help them to load their little book bags for the summer to take home as well, for any families that would give their children permission to take books home for the summer.
That is something that's unique that we do here in Ripon, that our students are able to check out a stack of books from each of our school libraries to take home with them for the summer, so that they have books right at home, which is amazing.
Yeah. There's some definite legwork that goes with that, so thank you, Jill.
We inventory all the books and then we send them all back out. And before we move to middle school, is there anything that you would add just in terms of pupil services? Because one of the things that we did do was add additional behavior interventionists to help support students in terms of social emotional learning and mental health.
Yeah, and you'll see those numbers reflected. If you were to compare last year's numbers to this year's numbers, you're going to see a growth in our pupil services contacts, and that's directly correlated to the growth of that team. So specifically looking at Barlow Park is the one you're going to see the biggest growth, and that grew by literally double. And that was the addition of one full-time behavior interventionist in that building. So right now they're staffed with, our school psychologist aside, 2.5 pupil services team members. And so that includes a counselor and 1.5 behavior intervention. And it's made a pretty, Tanya can speak to it, it's made a pretty significant difference in not only the volume of students that we're able to see, but the work that we're able to do as far as intervention with those students. As far as Murray Park, the numbers went down just a little, and that's just going to be completely because we have a different team there this year. We have a different school counselor there this year. And so that's just interpretation of how we report that data. And so that's one of the things our team's going to be working on this summer is getting a really clear vision of what data and how we want to collect that data.
The number is lower than Barlow Park, but the number is higher this year than it was last year.
The number is lower this year than it was last year. And that's, again, I'm attributing it to a new school psych and a new school counselor at those buildings. Our school psych is actually also doing intervention work at Barlow Park as well with our younger kiddos. So that also contributes to that higher number there. Middle school, you'll see a slightly higher number as well. That's the addition. Could be, I guess I don't want to make bold claims, but could be in part the addition of that full-time Dean of Students and Behavior Interventionist in that building. And then at the high school, we actually also had an intern this year at our high school. So our numbers remained relatively the same at the high school, but we were lucky that that intern then was able to fill the maternity leave of one of our high school counselors, which is a rare opportunity in pupil services, so that our students didn't see a lapse in their ability to see a counselor. So those numbers, again, remained relatively the same. So we are growing in positive ways. I know we talked about this last year, and at mid-year it's a little counterintuitive when you see really high numbers because you might think, oh no, what does that mean? To me, that's always going to be a good thing. I want those numbers to be in the thousands every year because that means that our team is really working effectively to meet the needs of our students.
I mean, if I can add into at our level, we were able to use that additional behavior interventionist in a coaching role as well. So going into the classroom and coaching the classroom teacher in the different ways that she interacts and sets her kids up for success in the classroom.
So each of our behavior intervention take on some of that role, just as they do. You know, we have reading folks, math folks who have that background. Our behavior interventionists to operate in that capacity of being able to help coach our teachers as well.
I mean,
we set up a lot of plans. There's a lot of plans that are set up with Danny and so it just continues to happen.
There were kids, and I think about the fall before I was out for a bit, and just how some of our kids just couldn't function in the classroom. And I came back, and it was like this magic wand had been just cast, and they just did amazing work with our kids. But they are. My God, they were engaged in lessons and working, and just, it was pretty neat. So
we've got a pretty special team.
Yeah,
They're really amazing. They need to be careful. I keep saying, no, we have a job. Just be good, but not like too good. So, other questions about pupil service contacts? I think I have a little definition of what goes into those. So that is all outside of the already planned small groups and one-on-one contacts, which are, I would say, the majority of their day. So that's, I mean, they're buying lunch sometime because they don't often get lunch and they're not often stopping. I mean, they're unbelievable. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Rick, you want to
All
come in?
right. As Christy stated, our data for iReady, I think, has improved. We worked really hard this year on incentives for iReady. I'm guessing Nicole probably hears some stuff at home about iReady. As they get closer to 8th grade, they don't necessarily care for iReady anymore. And now that we started even in 2nd grade, 1st grade, right, it's probably going to be tougher for us. So we really focused this year on some strategies of how to get them to take it seriously and actually to work at it. I went around to the classrooms a few times. I actually used you guys as one of my I guess bullet points that the board wants to see some growth. Obviously we all do, but I said I have to give a report. And some kids took it, I think, decently, you know, and seriously. But we always run into the problem at the end of the school year where we just took care of their forward testing and then they start doing that diagnostic. And I think the toughest diagnostic that we have is the reading one. It just takes a long time. So we continue to work with iReady to get a better plan with them. And sometimes I think as the iReady we look at that, it seems to be sometimes maybe too, I don't know, it's not maybe at their level sometimes. I don't mean like the content, but just how some of the programming is. So I want to say it's not as mature, but sometimes when I deal with the maturity, then I think it's pretty close, you know. But anyways, with that being said, I think we continue to work with them and try to see what we can do to make that better. But I was happy this year. Last year was kind of a bit of a struggle. This year was much better. So we'll continue to work on those incentives, but we've been doing that per class. We used to do things together more, you know, with grade levels, but now we've kind of broke it down into individual grade levels. We actually had, I think it was close to 13 or 14 8th graders that actually tested out of iReady. So that's one thing that they can do. So if they do their lessons and they get a pass grade level, or there's no more, you can't go any higher than 8th grade, then we're good to go. So then they don't have to do it. So that was kind of something that I hadn't seen for quite a while. Just looking at our next steps, we're going to continue to do that, work on our incentives, and we talked about that each grade level. And again, trying to decrease those, close the gaps as we continue to say. We're going to continue with our math and reading and behavioral interventions with social emotional learning. We do that usually during our advisory period. We have quite a few groups that started this year. Abby, I know that you maybe mentioned that already with collaborative wellness at the middle school. That has seemed to go off pretty good. So that's something that we'll continue to do. And then something new next year is each grade level will have the reading teacher and the math teacher will be doing the interventions just with their grade only. So the kids that they actually work with and see them during their classes, they're actually going to work with them. And I'll pull them out of a study. We'll have a study hall. It's not really going to we'll call the study hall either math intervention or reading intervention, and that's when they're going to get that. And math intervention, I believe I have set up in the schedule, will be, I think, in the morning, and reading intervention is in the afternoon, because each grade level gets 2 hours of specials, and then some of those kids will continue to get their specials, but it might be opposite hours.
And that's due in part because of the board's support for those individuals to go back to obtain their intervention certificates and take on that additional role.
So we're going to try it this year to see how it works. I don't know. Hopefully it works, but that's what we're going to give that a shot and see how it plays out with each math and reading teacher.
We get the biggest gains when we differentiate and do that personalized instruction. So this is part of that process.
But I'm curious to see how it goes. And it's a kind of a scheduling nightmare at first, but hopefully I can pull those kids out and have it all set up to go before school starts. So. And that's pretty much what I have at the middle school level.
And I can speak briefly to the high school since Randy is not here. Again, I think impressive to note is, he always notes the number of, or the percentage rate of courses passed, and looking at those numbers, they are just absolutely phenomenal. And that's attributed certainly to the work that Randy and Bill and his entire staff do to, just really stay and work with those kids and provide additional opportunities for them to meet with teachers and to meet with them in small groups and all of that. I know that we have been working really hard on switching to a skills-based grading initiative at the high school, and in fact, we just got off of a 3-day institute the week after school let out. So we are really excited to implement that fully next school year. Really working with the staff to identify not only looking explicitly at their standards, but how they correlate to transferable skills once they leave high school, and how we can integrate that into each of their courses. We are working with Infinite Campus to customize a report card so that a report card reflects the skills-based grading. The students will still receive an overall letter grade for their course, but underneath that it will break down into 4 or 5 skills that each of the departments have identified as being priority. And then just really showing the progress that the kids are making each of those skills that correlate to their overall letter grade for that course. Again, like everybody else, even in terms of pupil service contacts, there are certainly, we see an increase in that. Looking at the behavior report, I know Bill added that data, and he noted that many of the behavior events that you see in the data are related to truancy warnings. We've had a substantial number of that this year, and we continue to work with that and try to figure out how to get our kids in school and to stay in school and to show up.
Well, we're going from that hybrid model too, where students just have that flexibility, and we're bringing them back together to this really structured schedule. So that's been a little bit of an adjustment, and you see some attendance dropping, but we did get hit pretty hard with COVID.
That was part of it, certainly. And then the other piece was, and I'll speak to this when I go over the behavior reports, we actually last summer spent some time redoing all of the way that our entire truancy process. And so part of it is I don't want to say that our data in the past wasn't accurate, but it probably wasn't as accurate as what this is. We've really found a process for working with families. A lot of what's in Bill's report, and certainly all of the reports of our schools, include those warnings. And so you're going to see a lot of warnings. That doesn't mean that that's just truancy that we're taking out, but we've really worked a lot with our parents, and we've developed a really strong process that's actually linked in that behavior report that we'll get to in a little bit. So part of that increase in those numbers is just, again, a more sound system for how we collect the data.
And again, just the diligence of the parent contacts, the student contacts, the attempts, the amount of work that our teachers, our administration are doing with our students certainly contributes to the overall success. So I appreciate this entire team. We have an incredible group of admin and staff who just work endlessly to be able to share the celebrations that we're sharing with you tonight.
It's tracking those students down one-on-one to make sure they do everything they can and they have that support to be successful. And you see that where 70 and 73% of our students respectively are on honor roll at our 12th grade level because of that work and effort to keep them there and to help those students realize what they're capable of doing.
Okay. Is Rebecca on too? Rebecca, are you there? I'm not sure if she's on or not.
Our data is there for Odyssey as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you so much.
For your support.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item under new business. Consider approval of teacher overload pay for 2022-2023. Can I please have a motion? So moved.
A second.
Okay, did you catch that, Joan? Oh, I get to do that, don't I? You do. Okay.
Motion.
Okay, I used the drop down. And I used the drop down here. All right, I get you. Okay. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none? We will vote. You don't have anything?
But I'll try again.
It's not stated.
Here we go.
There we go. Okay, we got it?
Yep.
All right, and the motion passes unanimously. Okay, consider approval of support staff wage structure updates. Can we please have the motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Nicole. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. And the motion passes unanimously. Our next item, consider approval of updates to the professional educator salary and stipend guide. Can I have a motion, please, to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Nicole. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Gary. Do we have any discussion on this item? Hearing none. And the motion passes unanimously. Consider approval of new insurance advisor. Can I please have a motion to put this on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Nicole.
Second?
Thank you, Gary. Do we have any discussion?
I guess I have one question for Jonah. Is the way that the advice is going to be delivered going to be significantly different from this advisor?
Yes and no. I think from most perspectives, the answer is no. But I think that because the person is going to be a different person, I think it's going to be different. I think that she's like thoroughly vetted, I think is the best way to say it. That, you know, the CEO of Walker Forge chose her because he spoke and interviewed like 14 different advisors. And we haven't done that. I'm not as old as he is. He's a veteran CEO that's been doing his business for a long time. But I think that this person that we have is fantastic, and she's not quite a fiduciary, but she teaches others on what it means to be a fiduciary, and she won't promise us that she's going to act as a fiduciary, but she is going to act in our best interests and not withhold information from us. So I think that, I don't know how to say it, but she's going to be a very, very outstanding change for us.
But I thought in the memo it said that it was fee only and not
Yes.
on commission.
Yes,
So-
and yeah, that part, yeah, that's true. That's a little bit different. Gallagher did agree to go to fee only starting in July. But she's going to agree to go to fee only starting in July as well. So I guess, yeah, I mean, that is a change, but Gallagher had agreed to go with that as well. Yeah.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Are we ready to vote? All right. And the motion passes unanimously. Our next item is consider approval to hire professional staff. Can we have a motion to please put this on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Missy.
I'll second.
Thank you, Nicole. Do we have any discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. And the motion passes unanimously. Our next item is consider approval of the consent agenda. Can we please have a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Nicole. And a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Missy. Okay, do we have anything that we need to pull from the consent agenda? Any discussion about that?
Thank you for putting all of our second reading action items on the consent agenda.
It's so nice the third meeting, isn't it?
Mhm. Thank you,
It
Joe.
was much faster.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. And the consent agenda passes unanimously. All right. Possible upcoming action items. Electronic software change for Crossroads and Ripon High School.
I can speak to that if anyone has questions about that.
Do we have any questions?
If anyone does. Previously, they had been using GradPoint, and since Steve Brooks moved into the position. GradPoint, the platform, is switching to a different company, Pearson, and a different platform. And not only are there changes in what the platform is going to look like, but the price went up substantially. So we were just looking at some other options and came across Adventum, and had met with a representative. I was with Steve and looking at that, just weighing cost benefits and what it had to offer. And this program looks phenomenal. We're actually really excited about what it has to offer. The hope is that in getting approved, hopefully in July, Steve would still have an opportunity to try it out with some of the students that he's doing credit recovery with this summer, just to get them kind of initiated to it prior to the start of the school year, and test it out and get them a little bit more comfortable with it. But again, we're really excited about the possibilities that it has to offer. It just including some of the just more intensive in terms of interventions, rather than having the students have to retake the entire course. It really breaks it apart by specific units that they need to work on. Currently, GradPoint basically makes the kids redo the entire course, which can be very, very time intensive for our students, and this one just offers a lot more flexibility and options for our kids. So.
Structurally, how does it look?
It's web-based, excuse me, but I didn't try to email the company and talk to them today to see if there's an app we can push out. But even if there's not, we can make that website the home page and also a bookmark so that it's easy for them to access. But I'm checking to just see, is there an app that can be pushed out, because they do have Chrome boxes down there. So it'd be very easy for us to do if they do that. But either way, it'll be very simple on our end.
Thank you for checking up
Absolutely.
on that. Great.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Chrissy. The next item is legislative updates.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing, Joan and I just continue to watch budget and updates and information coming forward, and continue to be committed to reserving as much of the ESSER funds as we can moving forward, because we know the budget's going to be tight after next year. And one of the greatest opportunities that we have is looking at insurance providers, which we'll be doing again here in the fall for a move in January. And we also hope potentially have an on-site clinic up and going to help us with some of those budgeting needs. So those are probably the big things, and just looking to save in any place possible.
All right. Thank you. And our next item, business-related reports, the food service interim budget report. Anything to share on that?
Things are going really well with the food service report, and this is kind of looking back 2 months, but as far as food service goes, we've been meeting with our new food service director, which we need to introduce to the board sometime soon. Her name is Katie Mako, and she was the assistant food service director in Fond du Lac, and so we're looking forward to that, and we're looking to make food service a little healthier with breakfast options, and potentially, if we can get all the stars aligned, doing something with the pricing of that. But we'll announce that later once we get it figured out.
We really want to get the total grams of sugar down in our breakfast, just because that's such an important meal, and balancing that with keeping kids interested in eating breakfast.
All right. Thank you for that. The next item, the general fund interim budget report.
Things are going well with the general fund as well. Everything's trending like it should. We hope that we're going to have some savings at the end of the year that we can put into fund balance to help cushion cash flow and going forward. And we will see. I know that we, maybe a negative is that we may not have the revenue that we projected. We won't have the expenses that we projected, but it would be because just with some of our grants, I think we have 14 grants, and so some of our grants we will not be able to spend as we planned on. And so for that reason, we won't have the expense or the revenue for some of our grants, but I think we'll be very close to overall projections. So with some savings.
Thank you, John, for that.
And Joe, with some of those grants, there's carryover?
Yeah.
The next year?
Most of the grants have carryover.
So it's not like we're losing it, we're just not spending it this year.
Okay. All right, our next item is the 2021-2022 bullying report and summary of student behaviors.
So I did this report a little bit different this year, and that is because, I'm trying to think of what the date was, but we actually redid the reports. I think I gave that update at the mid-year data report, that we redid the way that we report bullying to kind of look at that form from a bigger picture of, let's report all behaviors and incorporate bullying into that report, so that we kind of had that really nice picture of the data all in one, and that's really helped you look at the data that reported and making sure that it was really comprehensively reported. An example of that is if you look at the numbers, one of the things you're going to notice in the comparison from last year to this year was that bullying remained, the reports remained relatively similar, but the harassment reports went up, and part of that could be attributed to the fact that the way that we actually reported the data this year, again, because we redid those forms, has been pretty accurate. Certainly, you know, our behavior interventionists have been a big part of that as well. The addition of those positions, they do a lot of the follow-up with these different types of behaviors and things. But I wanted to give a more comprehensive overview of not just bullying, but what are the other types of behaviors that we do see within the district, because obviously we know that a lot of those things can lead to bullying. And so to be able to see kind of that more comprehensive overview. So that's the shift that you're going to notice. The report summary does kind of give that overall kind of look at the total referrals. So those referrals, I did pull out attendance. So just know that the attendance is not reported in there. We're going to be looking at Infinite Campus. We do want to report that differently because we don't feel that while it is a behavior, there's a lot of factors that go into that. If you're especially an elementary kiddo, you don't want to be penalized because mom or dad couldn't get you to school. So, and we're kind of shifting our approach to working with families on behavior, or attendance rather. So we do want to report that separately. So this does include the behavior referrals, which also you can kind of see the broken out categories of transportation referrals. That was new this year. At the bottom of the report, you're going to see a couple of links in one of the appendices that give you what those referrals look like. Those were created last summer and have been really refined throughout the school year to make sure that they are really user-friendly. Our drivers, our bus drivers this year, we did some PD with them and they really used reports. So that was really cool. It was something that has been a huge, like, in addition to our monthly meetings with our bus companies, that's been really important in creating those positive connections between our admin people services team as well as our drivers. So that's been really nice. And then you'll also see the broken out numbers for bullying and then for harassment broken down by each building. And then the general comparison and under historical trends from last year to this year. Questions about the report overall? I know it's a lot of information.
More of a comment. I really like what you said in your previous report about the behavior interventions, about how it's counterintuitive, but you want more reporting. You want those numbers to go up. And I would imagine that same thinking applies to this as well,
Absolutely.
so you can get after it. And you can prevent something more severe from happening down the line.
And you're going to see that trend also, you know, as we redid the reports, which means we are going to have more reporting. This ultimately goes into those people services contacts very often, because oftentimes there's something behind the behavior, why a child is behaving in a certain way. That's where our people services staff comes in and works with them, and we are able to mitigate some of those behaviors. And so it's been really good. Every year I get excited about all the things we're going to be improving on as far as data reporting, but it's been a really nice tool, I think, in helping our people services staff bridge with our admin and just how we address behaviors. You know, consequences are certainly necessary, discipline is certainly necessary, but it's really nice when we can do the groundwork of working with the child to figure out the why behind the behaviors. That's what's going to make the change. So,
which leads them to want to be in school more, have a more positive attitude, to feel more supported, and then we see those academic gains too, which is continues to have a compounding effect.
So in lieu of what we're doing then to support the child whose behaviors we're charting, how are we then looking at maintaining support and counseling services, et cetera, for the children who are affected or victimized by bullying or harassment?
Great question. So one of the things I'm really excited for, I think you all know that we have a couple of partnerships with different community providers. So right now we have 3 MOUs. We have Collaborative Wellness, who just grew their staff by 2, which means the wait list has now been disseminated between those 2 people, which is really exciting. That means as soon as we have referrals, they can take them on. SSM Health, we currently have 2 providers from SSM Behavioral Health, which is an increase. We barely had anybody last year, so it's an increase almost like 200% from there. And then Blue Lotus is a new MOU as well. And moving forward, we have actually agreed she will be spending 40 hours a week next year in our school district. So I just got goosebumps just saying that, because that's going to be really instrumental for our kids to have that next step from what our school counselors can provide. So obviously, in addition to the time that they can spend with our school counselors, behavior interventionists, we are increasing the support from our clinical providers by more than double for next school year. They'll have spaces here in each of our school buildings to work with students. And so as Rick mentioned earlier,
as possible.
that's in the way of one-on-ones, which is all built through insurance, but also through a number of different funding sources that Joan and I work with. We will be able to do a lot more small group intervention as well.
And when you look at a counselor's day and you think of the amount of time after school when you can capture a student to have a session and not interrupt the academics, that's minimal. So many families need to rely on those hours within the school day, but often that means a parent taking off of work or those kind of things. There's so many barriers that end up being there, and this just really helps to remove those.
This is the first year that we have opened up the summer school time for our providers to come see students. So we do have providers still working in our schools right now to see students during summer school. When summer school ends, SSM Health will continue to see students at the middle school, just because I'll be at the middle school. Whereas Collaborative Wellness has a site here in town, so the parents either has to bring them to school or to that site. But so that's been another just improvement. We're always looking for their suggestions and ways to say, hey, how can we get you guys doing more to see students?
Well, and the greater availability and the more integrated it is into the school day, and the more you're addressing that whole mental health stigma to try to just wipe that away as it just becomes a natural part of your everyday academic school day.
And we've shifted what our school counselors teach. This has been a shift over the last 3 years away from, not to say away from, but that tier 1 level of social emotional learning teaching has really been at the hands of our teachers. So they have used our SEL curriculum to really teach that general and universal kind of SEL instruction on kindness and respect and empathy and all those types of things. Our school counselors have adapted the DPI mental health curriculum, and they've actually been teaching our kindergartners about their brains. Like, it's really cool to see that shift. It is so normalized. If you walk through Tanya's building, if you've got some time, I think they're still up. It's so cool to see all the kids, like their emotions are all up on the wall, and to know that they're literally learning mental health. It's not like they're learning kindness, which they are, but we have taken it to the 2.0. And that's in part to DPI creating those lessons, but really the boots on the ground work of our school counselors to say, we need to continue this work and go deeper. And there's no age that's too young. We kind of used to think, that maybe in middle school or high school they'll be ready for that, and gone are those days.
So just like we teach them, okay, your heart beats and your heart pumps your blood, we're teaching them your brain does what your brain...
Your amygdala, and when your amygdala is firing, here's the problem. And so we have all these cute little ways to show them on their hands, and this group of kindergartners showing their teachers my brain needs a break, and that's kind of that signal. So they're literally learning the science of their bodies and what's happening.
Yeah. And a way to communicate and take those breaks if need. The other thing that's really exciting though, when you talk about the important work of what counselors are doing, so often when there were behavior needs for students who needed that extra support and we didn't have a behavior interventionist, counselors were doing that. And so there were times where there were interruptions with that learning across the classrooms because they needed to deal with a student who needed some more immediate care. Now with those behavior interventionists, they're able to step in and do those things and keep what the counselors are doing in their work with classrooms more consistent. So it just has this compounding positive impact by having those staff in place.
It's made a big difference. Questions? Other questions?
I had a question about the fact that I think we're getting a new bus company And do we know whether the set of drivers is going to be a lot different? And do you have a plan for meeting with them?
From my vantage point, yes, we will continue to, we just started this in the spring. We only did 2 PD sessions, but we kind of said, we expect a little bit more out of our drivers than what they're trained. Their training is not to be teachers, right? We're saying, manage this classroom on wheels. So I did 1 training with them, and Becky did another training with them, and we'll continue that training. Joan and Mary, I'm not sure. I think a lot of the drivers will remain
They've
the
asked
same.
for that monthly. They were so, they gave us such positive feedback from those 2 sessions and want to continue that. And for many indications, a lot of our bus team is continuing with the new company, so we look to continue with those same practices. We're really excited.
And they were so excited about it. Like, it was fun to see them be like, what we take for granted, our knowledge and education, they were just very excited to learn some of those very basic, just like what I guess I would call classroom management strategies to try on their bus.
It was a great opportunity, though, for some of our veteran and lead drivers to be able to share their strategies with some of the newer drivers, and share that collective wisdom, and that was really helpful.
It seemed like the owner of the new company was very receptive to wanting to work with the district on training.
He's very excited.
Lemurs had been too.
Absolutely.
We want to continue that.
And just to answer Gary's question more directly about the number of drivers, we have 11 staff from Lamers that said that they would like to work with Northern Express. And we have 9 regular education bus drivers. So we've got most of our staff. I believe that includes the mechanic, who's like a really vital member of the team. And so most of the staff are trying to go to Northern Express. They're actually being recruited 3 different directions. Sure, I bet. Because Rosendale has a new company, Waupun still has Lamers, and now we have Northern Express here. So we're kind of being pulled in 3 different directions. But I think we're going to retain a bunch of the drivers.
And I think that speaks to the efforts of the team to connect directly with those drivers, to update that behavior form, to be really responsive, our administrative team and principals to be responsible to questions and concerns about student behaviors, have a great feedback loop. So.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. All right. At this time, we'll convene to closed session. Can I get a motion to
move to adjourn to closed session? Sorry.
I'll second. Gary. Thank you for the second, Nicole. All right. All right, and we will vote. We're waiting for Gary and Nicole to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta leave on the end.
See you later.
Oh, yes, duh, sorry.
Yep.